So, okay. I hope the upstream will be stable today. The last session has been interrupted because of well, my internet because of, well, where are we? Is that acceptable? Well, sort of. Okay, well, yeah, our last session got interrupted because of my internet connection dropping. Sorry about that. And, well, we'll see how the stream will be going today. Right now we're somewhere around 1600 kilobyte per second upstream, which is not great, but I hope it will be acceptable for the session. Well, we'll see. Okay, now let's have a look at where we left off last time. Okay, we had some, we tried to, I need to increase the brightness on the document. So I've got some issues to correct over here. There's some leftover problems with the hair up there. Now what I want for that would be, as an eraser, the airbrush tool. That's all right. And then I will clean this up. Okay, that's nice. And now I would go and add some highlights to the frontal view, just where we left off last time. So instead of the pencil I've got here, I'll be using the acrylics like last time. And now we're just going over and adding some highlights over here within this layer, which is a mask for another layer, which has the blend mode set to add. So, okay, that's all right. And now I will be using the smudge tool, the finger tool, to soften these hard edges at the end of the strokes, and maybe reduce the effect, highlight a bit, like that. And then we've got the next one on the other side over here. There might also be some highlights, maybe not that much. And then again, like I did that with the other highlights, just remove the edges at the end of the strokes, or the very drastic, very contrasts heavy ends, so it looks a bit more like a real highlight, like there's a local maximum for the brightness. Okay, so I think we could go for the area below her right ear. As seen from our side, this would be the left side. I think here there could be some reflection, and maybe here, these areas. So, and maybe I'm already overdoing this, since this will be just some concept art, some idea. Well, you get the idea. So something like that. Okay, now we've got two layers acting as highlight layers, and what I would like to add is another layer in the background, some kind of backdrop, which is a bit, well, which pumps up the contrast, the overall contrast within the picture. Right now there's this gray tone, which stems from this auxiliary layer over here, and I think I'll keep it. Maybe we'll change the auxiliary layer later on, putting another hue into the layer, but for the time being I think that's okay. What I really would like to have would be some kind of darker background. Doesn't have to be defined with detail. This would only distract the viewer or whoever uses this character art to produce actual media. And now I will be using, well, let's give it a gray tone, just a gray, some gray color, and rather bluish, for we want it to be in the distance, or want it to be perceived as being a bit more distance, and bluish tones or bluish color is usually seen upon as, well, being farther away, which stems of course from the atmosphere, and well, yeah, that is the first idea. We could also put that color in the background. So let's take this one here, done. And now I might as well clear the other layer, and to well, enliven this this background a bit, I'd like to have a gradient over there, which is a problem because, as far as I know, Procreate can't create gradients with a gradient tool. So what I'll do is I'll take the airbrushing tool and just simulate this. Yeah, we can leave it with the soft brush. I'll choose brighter gray, bluish gray, and then I'll just zoom out, increase the size of the airbrushing tool, then I'll be just going through in the background. Okay, it's maybe too small, and a bit more saturation or opacity in the tool. Yeah, okay, right, something like that. I'd like the gradient to become brighter in this area. Hopefully it's what I remember working with an actual analog tool, an airbrush. Well, it was quite an experience, but I never really got to like the handle and the procedure of cutting masks. So back then I put up with watercolors, which also allow for very fine control if you add some special tricks and tools to it. For example, making the paper wet using kind of glue you find as well on stamps, like posting, and then you can fixate the paper on some kind of wooden underground or something that where the glue would actually stick, and then you would wait a day or two until everything is dried up, and then the paper itself would get some tension, or there would be tension within the paper, and then when working with watercolor you wouldn't automatically have this waving or this welding. Now welding is the wrong word. The surface becoming wobbly. once the water is applied. Okay, so I think we can work with this, and now we can adjust the highlights a bit. This is just too much right now. I think we got to reduce this a bit. Let's start with the hair over here. Oh, that's not even visible. Why did I? There did I? Yeah, that was what I wanted over here. Okay, right, unlock this. And now let's have a look at the opacity of the layer. So I think somewhere like that might be okay. And the layer creating the highlights for the face and the skin can also be adjusted. Remove it over here to somewhere like that. Yeah. I think on the eyes it's still a bit, on the eyelids, the upper lids, it's still too much. I may have to reduce this another way. I see. Leave it for the time being. I'll lock the layers again. And this one also. Yeah, well, alright. Okay, now, well, actually we could remove this even further. What I would do if we were to really go into the details and work much longer on this piece is I would add more layers, actually copying this one, duplicate, and then I'd work on the layer like this and say, okay, this was the first pass, and for the second pass I'd say we invert this, and then I would have a look at the highlights already set, these lighting over here, and I'd go and say, okay, let's try another round with acrylics over here, and only very going to the center of each highlight and adding some small amount of strokes, or some small strokes over here, so the points on the surface actually facing or reflecting the most light would really stick out in terms of brightness. Somewhere like that. So, and then we could, just as we did earlier, smoothen the end of the strokes over here, because that looks a bit strange. So, and then you would have a much more convincing highlight over there. So the basic layer of the first pass was just to have a broad area around the highlights, and then you'd add another layer with the same blend mode above the highlight layer that already exists, and then we could improve on the actual reflection, on the reflexes, so it looks more convincing. And we are now, this is right here, if we're having a look at this area over here, we are now coming into, well, there's some kind of conflict over here between the actual ink drawing and the rendering with the highlight, which is much more realistic over here. So this is one there. I would start to remove the details originally drawn with the ink, so we don't get this strange, well, this mixed style conflict over here. So if I'm going in and I'm unlocking the ink layer, or the mask of the ink layer, then I'm taking the eraser and we are removing these. You don't have to remove all of them, but just the parts that are closest to these to the more realistic parts here, and also, and oh, this is too big. So this one. So the contrast in style isn't directly ruining the experience for the viewer or the audience. Okay, and of course you would go and fix the shadows. Okay, so, and I still think we could remove even more of the opacity, of the layer down here. This is still too strong. It's too much. Unlock this. Yeah, somewhat like that on the skin, so it's visible, but not that extreme, because the skin shouldn't be that reflective. And now I just have a go at it and duplicate the highlights for the skin as well. And the mask has to be unlocked for it to be cleared and inverted. And now it's the same idea. I roughly defined the area for the highlight on the skin with the layer I just duplicated, and now the new layer on top of it is where I would really put the highest part of the highlight. So this one, maybe not the acrylics, but airbrush, a bit smaller, like that, and with low opacity. And for the eraser, that's okay, Okay, I think I can work with that. And now we have to choose, we have to choose the part of the skin of the cheek that is pointing directly when you would draw a normal in 3D space, and where this normal would be pointing directly, not at the light source, but, well, let's say that's the perfect angle between the light source and the camera, so it would have maximum reflection towards the camera. So I am adding this here. And now's the problem. I don't even see if I generated any effect. No, I didn't. Yeah, alright. No wonder. Yeah, no, but this is working, okay. Get this area brighter. Somewhat extreme, but that's okay. This way at least I see what I'm doing, or the eye has a chance to get this. And now I'm taking this part at the nose, and maybe here be facing the light source. And it's okay to exaggerate, because I'll tune it down a bit once I think the position is right, and then I'll just go into the layer stack and reduce the opacity of the whole layer. The reflection around the lips is also too strong. I'd have to reduce that, and then maybe here something like that. Using the smudge tool and softening the gradient. that. Okay, and then of course all the other parts. Right, maybe have it on the frontal view that way, somewhere here, maybe here, there, and then this part on the nose, and the most reflecting part, of course, on the eyelids, on the left one, on the right one, only a very small area. Yeah, well, yep. Okay, so now let's adjust the opacity of the whole layer. Unlock, and somewhere like that. Yeah. Good. Now another question would be if we could maybe change the color of the ink. The outline, our outline here, that is currently actually really black, so having a value of, in RGB terms, of 000 for each channel, which in itself doesn't pose a problem, but might not be so pleasant to look upon. So we might want to give it a bit of a different color, or giving it a color at all, a darker color. And in this case I would go and take some dark brown or something like that, a reddish dark brown. Maybe if we're using that, looks a bit, I just clear it, so without any color it looks like that. It's a bit broken. So now we will have this brownish color over there, which in my opinion improves the overall impression of the image. Okay, so now we already have a character which is color-wise in a state which is more or less acceptable, but maybe the contrast to the background color-wise is a bit too much. So if we want to improve on that, we could use another layer on top of that, on top of it all, somewhere here. Well, maybe we should draw the light out, but just experiment with this. We'll put another layer here, and then choose a direction within the color space towards which we'll push the whole image with a color blend mode. We'll see about that in a minute. And well, for shits and giggles, we could just take a tone or take a color which we would never ever leave in there later on, just to see how this is affecting our image. And I will just some kind of disco here. Yeah, right. I'll choose color here, which actually throws away the chromatic information of the pixels and replaces it, difficult word, with the color information contained within the layer. And right now this is at 100%, so everything is somehow tinted with this violet. Is this violet? This hue over here, or this color within the layer. And if I reduce the opacity, the effect of this calculation is reduced. If I put it down to none, then we've got the image as we've seen it before, and the more I put into it, so every pixel in this image gets, well, a bit of the new color, something like that. Yeah. And let's keep it at 15%, and then let's take another tone because I can't, this is just too much. Maybe a friendly yellowish brown, something like that. Could be an option. Or if you want to make it very glum and dark and gloomy, you could go for bluish. This is a very cool impression over there, but the idea stays the same. We're just pushing every pixel, every color information of every pixel of the image in a certain direction, and so the consistency of the whole image improves, or could improve if we don't exaggerate it, because now we've got some sort of a, well, the same vector for every pixel, or at least every pixel is pushed in the same direction to some degree. And yeah, no, but I think I will use another sepia tone, brownish stuff like that. Some of that. Just let's stick with that. That's okay. All right. Okay. Yeah, I think I will stop here. When we actually want to use this, or would have to show this image to some professional or something like that, of course we had to improve on the actual shadows on the hair especially, and then the highlights at the mouth are much too strong right now. We'd have to work on that, and then maybe we should have actual skin texture. Right now I've been using the airbrush tool, which is super smooth, but that's exactly the problem, because, well, actually real human skin, or even comic character skin, should show some difficult word, some irregularities, like, well, pores, or some well, pimples or whatever, small ones. So this all would look a bit more, well, realistic, though it's a comic character. Would feel more real. And then we could step by step improve more in terms of detail, and removing the initial ink drawing, and then at some time in the future, maybe another day of work or something, or two or something like that, and then we'd have no outline at all, and it would all be, well, almost look like it's 3D rendered. But that would be a bit too much. The idea with all the concept art is to give a preview, or a guidance to whoever creates the actual assets. Oh, by the way, what we didn't do so far, and which will also improve the image, would be to, just as we added additional layers to the lighting layers, we could also work out the shadows, meaning that we would put a shadow layer on top of the existing shadow layer, and then add color and shadow only in the deepest places of the image, or the darkest places of the image, where the shadow would be the deepest, and so we could independently adjust the depth of the shadow at the deepest places, and at the edges of the core shadows. Yeah. All right. So I guess I will collect all the YouTube videos, and I'll have a blog posting, and there I'll also add the Procreate file as a, I think I can export this as a, let's have a look at it, as a Photoshop file or something like that, and I'll attach it so anyone who would like to work with this file is very welcome to do so. And of course, if you think this is useful, please give me a like or subscribe, and maybe share this on some other social media platform. Okay, thanks. And as always, if you've got questions, there was no question today in the chat box, so I will be waiting for other comments, and then I will be answering these your questions later on, or whenever I see that a comment has been added. Okay, thanks. Bye.